Hello, everybody. Welcome back to English Champion. In this episode, I want to share an article with you, a topic in general that I think about constantly, and once again has to do with AI. This time, not necessarily in the classroom or in school environments, as I often talk about, but in the professional world and especially in the world of writing, which is what I do a lot of. And so I saw this article the other day. It was in my Substack feed, and thought it was quite interesting because it presents writing and publishing in a way that I don't agree with, and I'm trying to take this seriously. I'm trying to learn how people are using these AI tools, and have I been wrong about this? Am I too close-minded on all of this? And so I'm trying to learn from people on, okay, well, what are you doing exactly? I'm trying to not have the initial kind of knee-jerk reaction of saying, no, it's bad, I don't want anything to do with it. Maybe people are using it in good ways for writing, and maybe I just need to learn a little bit. And so that's what this article's about. And so I'm going to go through it, and I'm going to show you some of the strengths and some of the weaknesses, and you can maybe guess where I'm going to head with this if you have been watching any of my other episodes about AI. But let's take a look at it, and we'll see what this person has to say. All right. I'm not going to say this lady's name. I'm going to be critical, so I'm not going to try to embarrass anybody. But her article is titled, "What Effective AI Writing Assistance Can Look Like. Hint, it doesn't write for you." And the subtitle, "Use Cases Where AI Enhances Your Writing Process Rather Than Replacing It." All right, so this is what I've constantly heard as a teacher, that these AI tools, they're not doing the writing for the students. We can teach them properly how to use the AI tools to enhance their writing, not replace it, enhance. And as someone who has been a teacher a long time, and in the last few years where the students have been using these tools, I can clearly tell that the majority of students are not using it to enhance their writing. They're using it just to replace the writing. It just gets it done faster for them. So here's someone who's not a student and who's trying to explain that here's the proper way to use AI for writing. So let's see what she says. She says, "A friend makes all his life decisions by flipping a coin. Not because he believes the coin knows what's right, but because if he assigns chocolate to heads and vanilla to tails and gets tails, his disappointment tells him he actually wanted chocolate." All right, so I don't know if I believe that this person actually has a friend who does this. This has been around in science circles for several years. So this is probably apocryphal. She's just borrowing and saying, a friend of mine does this. Okay. The theory behind this little test is that when you have a choice and you don't think you know how to make the choice, if you have someone else, or in this case the coin, make the choice for you, and you then analyze your feelings upon seeing that choice being made for you, that will point you in the direction where you should have gone if you had made the choice on your own. So as she says, the disappointment tells you what you actually want. Just from a writing standpoint, she's making it sound like the person, because she uses the past tense, that he actually wanted chocolate. It makes it sound like he still had the vanilla, even though he was going to be disappointed, which means that, well, that's a really dumb way of going through life. Like, you're actively doing things that you're going to be disappointed with. I think what she means to say is when he actually wants chocolate. So you use the coin to then inform the decision you make going forward, not to determine for you, here's what you have to do. So her analogy here is a little confusing, but she uses it for a purpose, and it's to show that sometimes having the options placed in front of you by someone else or something else clarifies for you what you actually want, and that's what she thinks these AI tools can do for her. So here's how she continues. "This captures how AI writing assistance works best. The most valuable function isn't getting the right answer, but using AI responses as a mirror to clarify what you actually want to say. When I read AI feedback on my work, I often think, I don't agree with this, but that disagreement helps me figure out what I do want." Okay, so just like the using a coin to initiate a feeling in you about what you want or don't want, she's saying that's what the AI can do for you. When it shows it back to you and says, here are the options for your decision, you can say, well, I don't want that, and it helps your decision making from a writing standpoint. Okay, fair enough. Let's see how that works. There's a misconception that AI for writing means prompting ChatGPT to generate articles you copy, paste, and publish. Real AI Writing Assistant supports your process while keeping your voice and arguments central. I treat AI like input from a competent colleague whose suggestions I might incorporate, modify, or reject entirely. Okay. One, if you have a competent colleague, why not just ask a competent colleague? Because then you'd have a human connection and you'd actually, have a real dialogue with somebody. That might be helpful. But it also, this whole thing assumes that this is what people want to do. And for her, great. If this is what you want to do, if this is what you think your process is, by all means do whatever you want. But for most people, they don't treat it like this. And we can keep saying, well, we just need to teach people how to use this properly. When for them, maybe properly is, I just want the article done because I just need to post something on my website, or I need to submit this thing for, this blog I work for, or I need to submit it for class. So it depends on what you mean by your process and what the proper use actually is. For you, for her, she thinks that it's not about copy, paste, and publish. But for many people, it is. And for the readers, while many people can't tell the difference, I can tell the difference almost always between something that's ChatGPT produced or AI produced and something that's written by a human. Many people can't, especially with our reading skills the way they are and how fast people read today. They just skim and they just want the information and they don't even care. So there is an incentive to just have the AI write it for you. And so I appreciate this lady trying to provide some help, but why would she assume people want this help when you could just have it write it for you? Here are detailed case studies from my experience organized around different types of AI assistants. Note that I do not use all of these regularly. This is just a sampling of use cases I have found to work. She has some links to some other places where she's written about this, certain elements of AI in other places. Also note that the appropriateness of each use case depends on how and why you use it and your industry. For a framework on how to think about the appropriateness of AI assistants in writing, here's this other link. So she writes about this quite often, but I was interested in this article because it has these case studies where she actually walks through, here's what I do specifically. And so I wondered, all right, is this something that other people should do? Is this something that students should do? Why does this work for her? Does it work for other people? I don't know. Let's find out. Case study number 1, the voice first workflow. My most intensive AI experience came during a concussion that left me with severe migraines, cognitive fuzziness, and an inability to look at screens for more than short periods of time. I needed to write, but couldn't use my normal process. Not sure what her normal process is, but okay, maybe this is already her normal process. Who knows? Step 1, extended voice memos. I recorded hours of stream of consciousness brainstorming, capturing all my ideas and arguments. Within these recordings, I included instructions about organization or asked the AI directly how to structure scattered thoughts. Okay, so already we have a bit of a problem here. Her brainstorming is fine. Recording herself is fine. I included instructions about organization or asked it directly to structure scattered thoughts or how to structure the scattered thoughts. Okay, so if you're asking someone else to structure your thoughts for you, it's a sign that you don't have your thoughts properly thought out. All right? You're just throwing stuff out there, and that's fine. That's what all good writers do. You got to just get, I tell students, you got to get stuff on the page. Just put stuff on the page. But then when you ask the AI to organize it for you, like, well, why are you doing that? Is it because you're so scatterbrained that you can't even keep a straight thought? You can't connect two thoughts in your own head? Like, why do you need the AI to do that for you? Because if all you're doing is throwing out random ideas, well, that's not the beginning of writing. Even when we're asking young people to write, it's not about random ideas. There's usually some direction. And in that direction, there's usually some organization. Just because if you're a fluent English user or a user of any language, your brain automatically thinks in an organized way, or your words come out, I should say, in an organized way. When I have a thought in my head, the words in my head are not all jumbled up. They're thought out in sentences. So like there's already structure and organization going on when we use language. So then asking the AI about organizing your thoughts, it's like, well, why do you need to do that? Your thoughts are already there. And you probably should already have some direction on where this is going. For example, what exactly are you trying to do with these thoughts you're having? Are you trying to make an argument? Are you trying to persuade somebody? Well, the very thoughts that you're having, by knowing that they're with a persuasive intent, they're already going to start being organized in a certain way. They're not going to be perfect, of course, because you're going to have this point, like, oh yeah, I need to talk about this point too. That's all fine. But again, why do we need organization from AI for that? Well, let's see what she says. Step 2, transcription and organization. I uploaded transcripts to Claude, which is much better than ChatGPT at preserving tone, and asked it to create detailed annotated outlines with one critical instruction: include only information from the transcript. Without this, AI would add information I hadn't provided. Facts that weren't wrong, but arguments I wasn't making. Last sentence is a little confusing there. Okay, so this is where we start getting very interesting in the use of these tools. Already, what she's doing is much more complicated than just actually writing an article. All right, so the recording or brainstorming stuff, that's all fine. But then she had to include instructions about how to organize it. And then she had the machine create detailed annotated outlines about it. Like, okay, so now you've gone through several steps here. When I write, I might have a brainstorm where I get a bunch of ideas on the page. And then I immediately go to structuring it myself and fleshing out the paragraphs, because those were just the ideas to get me started. You're actually doing more work, and that's what continues on throughout this whole list here. You're doing more work than what regular people who write consistently, what we already do. So it's very funny that we think this is so helpful, and yet the process is so, if you're doing it this way, which she says is the best way of doing it, it's so tedious. Like, how about just get good at writing? And this goes way faster, because I can write an article in no time. I don't know, 30 minutes, and it's ready to publish. And like, to do this would take hours. I mean, it's crazy, this process. This all reminds me of when I would see students who would I'd catch students doing some elaborate cheating scheme. And, they crafted all these little tiny notes on these little cards, or they have it, they're hiding things. I'm like, if you would have just studied for an hour, you would have done fine on this test. Like, you put more work into cheating than you would have needed to just to study. Like, what are you doing? Just get good at this, and you won't have to use this stuff. It's way easier. Because here's what she does on the next step: iterative feedback. Step 3. After reviewing the outline, I provided detailed feedback via voice memo, specifying what I liked and wanted changed. Seeing the AI's organization helped me realize what structure I actually wanted. So here's back to her analogy at the beginning. Like, well, I needed to see it so that I could choose what I liked better. This became a multi-round process. Multi-round process, wow. After each AI output, I would record another voice memo with specific edit requests, creating several cycles of refinement before moving to drafting. Okay, so she's doing all this and she hasn't even gotten to drafting. When I write, I jot down a bunch of notes, and when I write notes, I write them in sentence form. And if I can, I write them even in paragraph form, so that my ideas are fleshed out. Now, I'm going to add stuff to them as I go, because it's going to spark other ideas that, oh, I need more detail there. Maybe I need a research source here. Like, it's going to expand. But I do this automatically when I write, where my brainstorm is an outline that is capable of being moved around if I want. But it's already fleshed out. So she's adding these extra layers that are really tedious. A multi-round process where after each AI output, I would record another voice memo with specific edit requests, creating several cycles of refinement. And we're not even at drafting. Like, you should already be doing all this in the drafting process. This is super duper slow. It's quite amazing. Now we're at step 4, draft development. Only then would I ask AI to develop the outline into prose, emphasizing it should maintain my wording while adapting from conversational speech to written format. Okay, now we have a big problem here. Adapting from conversational speech to written format. Well, those aren't going to be your words anymore, because when we speak, we use different language than when we write most of the time. And if you spoke it and your brainstorming was just in conversational speech, and you're going to try to write it in proper, you know, grammatical form and all that stuff, the wording is going to change. You can't maintain your wording while adapting it from conversational speech to written format. Those words change. Almost every study shows that written language is at an elevated level than spoken language. So if you didn't write this down yourself, automatically it's writing for you. So when you said adapting from, you meant translate, rewrite this from my spoken words into a more acceptable written form that's a little more elevated. Even here, I continued the iterative voice memo feedback process, giving detailed instructions after each draft attempt. So again, it sounds like she's the one guiding the AI in this writing process, but she asked the AI to develop the outline into prose. So it's like, well, why do you need to develop an outline into prose? Don't you already have prose? Isn't that what your brainstorm stuff was? That's all prose writing. Prose just means basic language. So why did you build an outline when you already had prose at your disposal? And then it changed it again from conversational speech to written format. So the AI is changing your work. You don't think it is because your ideas started this process and you're giving it feedback and, oh, change this, change that, change that. But it has already changed what you would have originally written. It just has. Now, you could say, well, but I'm the one deciding what becomes my final product. Yeah, but you didn't write that. All right. When you say, I asked it to develop and then I asked it to adapt, well, it's doing writing for you. You can't maintain the same words. That's not how it goes. Here's where it gets even more complicated. I sometimes photographed handwritten notes when voice memos felt difficult, creating a hybrid workflow that worked around my limitations. I don't know what her limitations were. She said she had a concussion, so I don't know why photographing handwritten notes. Like, she seems to be doing a lot, though she has a concussion. Maybe the concussion wasn't actually affecting her the way she thought. I don't know. If you're spending time photographing things and doing handwriting, I don't know why you need to go through all these steps. Interestingly, this step-by-step thinking process seemed to help my cognitive recovery. The more I practiced structured analysis through AI feedback, the less support I needed. Okay, so at what point will you not need this anymore? Because, yeah, that's good that you said that if you go through this process 5 times, on the 6th time, you're going to say, okay, I don't need AI anymore. Now it's time to be a real writer and write my own stuff. Or are you going to keep going through this process? Because this is a very long and tedious process. And if you're not using it to inform how you should do it just yourself, why would anyone go through this each time? This is very time consuming. Again, I would have already written an article faster than you going through this process. Again, you haven't even gotten to a finalized draft yet. You're still going through this. This is taking forever. So there's her process for workflow. All right. Then she gives a case study too that's slightly different regarding brainstorming. AI is a brainstorming partner. This is where AI becomes most valuable as a thinking tool, not just a writing tool. All right, I get very concerned anyone says this is a thinking tool because you're a thinking tool. How about you just use your own thoughts and your own brain? Why do you need to outsource thinking to something else? It seems weird. I use it when I'm genuinely stuck or when I have a vague idea I want to develop or sharpen, whether I'm writing about it or not. Okay, fair enough. We all get stuck from time to time. We all have vague ideas. The question is, well, what do you do to get unstuck and to sharpen your ideas instead of being vague? Well, most of us, we go do research. We go read and we learn a lot more about it. And then we think and we work through it mentally. Maybe we even scratch some notes out and we clarify it in our own mind. What is she going to do? Finding words and concepts. When I can't remember a specific term, I describe it. You know that thing where politicians use repetitive language to create alternate realities? The AI helps me identify the precise concept I'm reaching for. This was especially useful when I was concussed and had memory issues. Okay. What about people who don't have memory issues? Like, what it means if you don't know words is you don't know stuff. Okay, it means you're not smart enough. The definition of being smart is your ability really to use words, because words lead to concepts. Concepts lead to bigger connective ideas. And if you don't know words, then you don't really know what you're talking about. So, you know, if you have memory issues and you just need it for a short period of time, okay, that might be all right. But again, at what point is the AI creating the concept for you when you aren't very sure what exactly you want to say, and then the AI gives you a bunch of options, and then you go, yes, that's what I want to say. Well, then the AI is writing it for you. You might have given it a direction, an idea of where to go, but really the AI came up with it for you. And so it's no longer your writing. You really want this to be your writing, but it's not. Helps with developing vague ideas. When I have a half-formed idea that might become an article, I'll present it to AI and ask for Socratic questioning. Okay, this is really a problem. And funny when you think about it. She says, quote, I'm thinking about how AI regulation parallels financial regulation, but I'm not sure if this analogy holds up. What questions should I be asking myself? The AI will probe, quote, what specific aspects of financial regulation are you thinking about? Where do you think the analogy breaks down? What makes AI different from financial products? Wait a second. The fact that you came up with a parallel, an analogy, means you already have some connections. And you going through the thought process of whether or not that parallel holds up or not is what thinking is. You need to interrogate your own thinking. You've already started because you came up with a parallel. Okay, so it's like that's a creative leap that your brain is trying to make. Great. But then you're asking the questions to AI to ask you back the questions you should have been asking yourself all along. It's just so weird, like the circular mental gymnastics you're going through here are pretty crazy. I'm thinking about how AI regulation parallels financial regulation, but I'm not sure if this analogy holds up. What question should I be asking myself? You couldn't think if you're questioning, I'm trying to make an analogy here, but I don't know if this quite works. You can't think of the question. Well, am I being specific enough about which part of the parallel I want to actually explore? You're asking, where do you think it breaks down? Well, if you're already thinking it breaks down, then it must be breaking down. And if not, well, then you probably already have the answer. You just need to come up with it. What makes AI different from financial products? Again, this is what you would have thought of to even come up with the parallel in the first place. Like it's just so strange that you feel like you're so dependent on AI when you're already doing what you're asking the AI to do for you. You're already doing it. If you're not sure of something, you've already begun the thought process. Just keep going with it. Stop outsourcing and going, oh, well, I am having a thought, but I don't know where to go from this, so I guess I'll just ask AI. Like, just keep going. That's called thinking. That's what you're supposed to do. I mean, it's so wild that if you have a question, you would ask AI to come up with a question that you've already begun to ask yourself. So strange. Again, and how long is this taking you? Because when I'm working on clarifying an idea, I go through this process pretty quickly. How long is it taking you to type all this out and then having to read what the AI spits out, and then you have to think about it, and then how long do you go through this process? Like, this seems like this would take a long time. How about you just think through it yourself? It's very confusing. Working through complex issues. For topics where I have mixed views, I use AI to help me think through pros and cons systematically. I'm not looking for AI's opinion, but for structured questioning that helps me clarify my own thinking. Quote, I can't decide if take-home exams are fundamentally broken or just poorly implemented. Help me think through this. The AI becomes a thinking partner that asks the questions I should be asking myself. Yes, you should be asking them yourself, and you can. You already are asking a question. Are take-home exams fundamentally broken? Are they poorly implemented? Ask yourself 20 of those, and you won't need the AI to do it for you. It's just so strange. Why you're not seeing that for yourself? Structured questioning that helps me clarify my own thinking and thinking through pros and cons. If you don't know pros and cons, you're not smart enough. That's what it is. You're trying to write about a topic that you don't know enough about. And therefore, if you're asking the AI to just give it to you, well then they're no longer your thoughts, they're no longer your discoveries, they're no longer the things that you had to go search and find from experts who have actually studied this for a long time. Like when my students in classes don't know the pros and cons of an issue, I go, well, we need to start doing a lot of reading. Maybe we need to go interview some people. We need to go talk to really smart people who know about this topic. That's called research. And so if you're using AI for research, okay, fine. Again, there's problems with that too. But why you would jump through the hoops of this question and answer process, I don't understand. I can't decide. Help me think through this. Why can't you decide? That's because you don't know enough about the topic. So why you want to write an article about a topic you don't know anything about? You need to go spend some time learning about the topic first. So this is what's happening is, and this is what AI does for writing. Because what you're doing really is you're looking for an output. You're looking for a product to complete. Is that what writing is for? Well, I would say no, because if all you're doing is looking for a product to complete, the fastest and easiest thing to do would just have the AI write it for you. You're doing the same thing, just going through a way more laborious and complicated process than having it write it for you. But your goal is the same. That's the problem with all of this, is your goal for writing should be very different than just creating a product. Because if you want to just create a product, there's faster and easier ways of getting there. You're trying to create a product because if you don't know the pros and cons of your own topic, then what are you even doing? Ultimately, the computer is doing the work for you because they're the ones coming up with the pros and cons. And so then you're just going to take those pros and cons and tell the AI to put it into a structure that makes sense. And you're going to say, yes, that sounds good. Click publish. Look, I wrote an article. No, you didn't. The computer wrote it for you because you didn't even know the pros and cons of the topic. So we have to become smarter people. And we do that through research. We do that through time and reading and thinking and all that stuff. But it's funny that this author thinks that she's displaying how smart she is because she goes through this process, when really what it's revealing is, oh, she's not smart. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Because if she has to ask AI for these things, it means she doesn't know what she's doing. And why would I want to read articles from someone who doesn't know what they're doing? You should want to be, as an author, someone people trust, that you're an expert. Not that you had AI develop the pros and cons of your paper, but because you actually know these things and you have certain beliefs that you're then trying to communicate to people because you've thought about them for a long time. The irony of this is amazing, that people using AI think they're being so smart. You're actually just showing that you're not smart enough. And that's kind of sad because you could get smart enough. It's not that hard. She used it for research direction finding. This process often reveals where I need to do more research. Through Socratic questioning, AI helps me identify gaps in my reasoning. What evidence would you need to support that claim? What counter-arguments haven't you considered? What assumptions are you making here? Again, like, if you're not already doing this, I don't know what your brain is doing, because you should be doing this for yourself all the time. And if you don't know the answers to your own questions, like, you're not ready to write. I mean, or you don't even know how to read your own writing, because if you haven't thought about this, you genuinely don't understand your own topic. If you need the computer to ask you these questions, I don't even know what you're doing. You did some brainstorming? You talked into your voice recorder? Okay, well, what else? Like, the computer is doing all of the thinking for you. And the irony is, you're asking the computer to do the thinking that you've already started doing, you just refuse to keep doing. Because the very fact that you want these questions answered by yourself means you already know how to ask them of yourself. So why do you need the computer for that? Just ask yourself these questions. So weird. The key is that AI's structured questioning approach helps me think more rigorously than I might on my own. Okay, that means you're not a very smart person. If you can't do this on your own, that means you just said, well, I don't think very rigorously. Yeah, that's the definition of someone who's not a smart person. I don't think very rigorously. Yeah, so that's what you need to do. Learn to think more rigorously. Then you won't need the computer. Otherwise, the computer is doing the thinking for you. And if they're doing the thinking for you, they're also doing the writing for you. That's how it goes. It's like having a patient conversation partner who keeps asking, but why and what if, until I've thoroughly worked through an issue. Yeah, fair enough. But again, That's what adults should be doing for themselves. I mean, children have problems with this because they can't think ahead in the argument far enough. But, and so, that's what I have to do with students. But adults, but why? You have to ask yourself why? Or you have to have the computer ask you why? Like, why don't you think of it yourself? Or what if? This is what higher level thinking is. These are the upper levels of Bloom's taxonomy. If you're not doing these, then yeah, you don't know your topic. You don't know what you're writing about. The computer sounds like it's going to know what it's writing about, but I don't know if you know what you're writing about. Case study 3, AI as feedback provider. All right, so this is something that, again, gets talked about in classrooms a lot. Let's see how she uses it. The coin flip principle applies across different types of feedback. The value comes from having something to react to, not blindly accepting suggestions. Okay? Reacting to and suggestions, like those are kind of the same thing. Like you're reacting to suggestions. I understand what she means by blindly accepting. That would be the computer just doing it for you. And so, okay, she's gonna let the computer provide some options, and then she's gonna pick the best ones, I guess. Let's see how it goes. Number 1, research gap analysis and deep research integration. This has become one of my most valuable workflows. When I finish a draft but feel something's missing, I ask, what research gaps do you see? What would strengthen this argument? What are the strongest arguments against this position? Again, if you haven't thought of this, that means you don't know the topic well enough. So therefore, again, when the computer tells you the answers to those questions, and then you apply those are no longer your words and ideas. The computer wrote those for you. Just because you picked out the words, which most people don't because they just take whatever AI spits out and just put it right in the paper. The computer is writing it for you. When you don't know the strongest arguments against your own position, but you want to put those in, the computer is going to spit it out and then you're going to put them in. So you didn't write it because you didn't know it. Sometimes the issue is that an argument feels like it's meandering or losing focus. I'll ask, what are different ways I can reorient or target this? What's the core argument getting lost here? This helps me identify when I've buried my This helps me identify when I've buried my main point, pain point. That's a little Freudian slip, how this article is making me feel like this is a big pain point for me. Or wandered into tangential territory. Again, this doesn't make any sense. Sometimes I feel like the issue, like my argument is meandering or losing focus. Okay, if you already feel that, you've already diagnosed the problem. So therefore, you can already start implementing adjustments. You can fix it because you've already identified a problem. Why would you want to identify a problem and then ask the computer where it's meandering or losing focus, and then, well, what are different ways I can reorient or target this? What's getting lost here? Now you're having the computer do the work for you. You think the computer's helping you, but you already know the answer. So just push it further. You already know the direction you need to go. Just ask yourself that question and take the time to look at your own article. Put yourself in the shoes of your audience and go, if I were this other type of person, let's say I'm someone who completely would disagree with me, how would I feel? Would I follow this line of reasoning? Would this piece of research fit with what I'm trying to explain? You can go through that already. If you can't go through that, that means you're a low-level thinker, which is, again, weird because you're already starting to do the higher level stuff. You just refuse to go through the process. And so now this actually takes you more time. It's just so strange. The only way this saves time, the only way this is efficient is if whenever you get these answers, you just copy and paste them into your paper, which is what everyone will do. Why? Because the product because the thing you're searching for here is just a product. You're just trying to get done with this. Because if you were trying to do this to truly clarify your own thoughts and have something valuable to say and contribute to this larger argument that all these other people are having, this larger conversation, well, you would go through the process yourself. You wouldn't need the computer to prompt you this way. Very strange. AI creates detailed lists of areas needing support. Then I take it further. I ask it to convert these research needs into comprehensive prompts for tools like Gemini. Now she's going through yet another step. I use these reports as starting points, verify sources myself, another step, and conduct additional academic research when warranted. Now another step. You just added like 5 steps to a process that doesn't need all of this. If you just do the research ahead of time and then put those ideas on the paper and then spend the time on your own structuring that paper and honing your language and your arguments and incorporating your research, you'd be done by now. This process of using AI is so tedious. I can't believe anyone would ever want to do this. Just be a smart person and write it yourself. It's so much easier. She also uses it for number 2, logic, flow, and audience adaptation. I'm specific about feedback types. Is this logic sound? Focuses on argument structure. Where does this feel dense? Targets readability. How can I make this accessible to general audiences? Helps identify assumptions about reader knowledge. For adapting technical writing, I ask what concepts need explanation, what sections are particularly dense. This is especially valuable when I've lost perspective on what general readers will understand. Okay, so this is like basic stuff. This is high school level writing, where one of the very first things you have to do is think of who your audience is. If you're writing, if I'm writing for a scholarly audience, yeah, I write differently than I do on my Substack, where I'm assuming most people are sort of, I'm not writing for, I don't write at too low a level. Some pieces I purposefully make very, very general, but a lot of pieces I write are intended for people who have at least a high school education. I want you to be kind of like the average college kid. And so that's what I aim at with some of my vocabulary and the concepts and the arguments that I make. But I think about that before I write. As we English teachers teach all of our students, who are you writing for? Well, what is a reader going to look for? What kinds of background is that person going to have? These are things you go through at the early stages of learning how to write. So if you're asking the AI for feedback on your audience adaptation, like, oh man, you're skipping the human step of all of this. And now we're back to, well, why are you writing this? Just to have something to write? Just to have a piece to publish? Because what real writers do is we try to reach specific people. And we say, I think this is going to be informative for you. This may not be applicable to those other folks, but I think you might be interested in this, and I want to write this for you. And I'm going to write it in a way that is accessible to you. Well, that's what being a human being is about. I have the empathy and the theory of mind to think, what is that person going to think when he or she is reading my work? Are they going to get lost in this passage? Or am I using vocabulary that's too elevated? Am I dumbing this down too much? Am I insulting them by being too obvious here? I have to think of the human component. If you're using the computer to do this for you, you're not thinking of human beings, because the computer is thinking of human beings and not you. Sensitivity reading. For sensitive topics, I ask AI to read this from the perspective of X group. Ew, yikes. Again, from an empathy standpoint, you should already be doing that. If you want to truly relate to people of a different race, of a different gender, of a different cultural background, how about you read it from that perspective? Because that's what empathy is about. Put yourself in their shoes. See if it makes sense. Would they find something offensive? This helps identify blind spots and previews potential reactions, letting me address concerns proactively or decide what I'm willing to defend. Sometimes I realize I don't care about certain objections, but the preview still makes my writing more intentional. And again, it's just so funny that you think, how come a computer can imagine that they're a 70-year-old black woman? Because that's who let's say you're writing an article for elderly black females, and you want to have the computer do that. Well, one, why are you writing an article for elderly black females in the first place if you clearly don't understand anything about elderly black females, that you have to ask a computer to read it from their perspective? Like, if you don't understand or have any connection to that group, why are you even trying to write about it? It means you don't know enough about that group. So in the process of learning enough about that group to write for that group, well, you'll develop some empathy along the way. And then you can start to imagine that, I'm writing for you. How are you going to take this? Now that I've learned about, your group and, what you might want to hear from an author, I can imagine how you might interpret some of my ideas here or follow my arguments. Well, you can already do that, because part of that was already built into the fact that you wanted to write that article in the first place, that you felt like you had some connection to that group. Otherwise, you wouldn't be writing it. So why do you need to have the computer pretend to be a human being when you could pretend to be a human being? You could pretend to be that other human being, and then you wouldn't need the computer. Let's be more human. That would be great. We would love each other a lot more if we were all more human to each other. And it's funny, just like, think how I just thought of this. Think how insulting this is to that audience member, okay? Where, let's say I'm a 70-year-old black woman, and I find out oh, the way you wrote this article was to have a computer pretend to be me. I would go, what? You don't want to get to know me? You don't want to connect with me? You're a 28-year-old white woman, and what? You didn't want to learn about my life? You didn't want to put yourself in my shoes? You didn't want to have this imaginative conversation between you and me? You wanted to have the computer do it as a stand-in for me? Like the computer is me? Or like I'm in any way like a computer? Like that's pretty demeaning. That's pretty condescending. Why would you want to do that? How about if you want to write to a certain group or for a certain group, how about you have a human connection with that group? That would be a lot more beneficial. They'll respect you a lot more than them finding out, oh, you used a computer to pretend they were part of my ethnicity. That's kind of an icky way of living life, don't you think? Case study 4, structural and technical tasks. Title generation and reorganization. When stuck on headlines, I brainstorm with AI, feeding it key arguments in desired tone. I often don't use suggestions directly, but seeing options clarifies what I don't want. Similarly, when unsure about organization, I ask for alternative structures. Again, it's coming up with headlines for you. That means it chose the words for you. So you didn't write it. If you already know the ideas you want to convey, and that means you should already know the words you want to convey. Why don't you just write the words down? Why are you using title generation from AI? It's weird. Tone calibration. For different audiences, I ask AI to advise on adjusting tone. How would you adapt this for a formal academic audience? Make this more conversational without losing analytical depth? Or given the audience I'm writing for, what jargon should I simplify or explain? I just talked about that. Like, if you don't know your own audience, then why are you choosing to write for them in the first place? When you choose to, like when I write something that's scholarly, I'm doing it for a very specific reason. I want to connect to those people with the topic I'm talking about. When I write for this audience, I want to connect to those people. I want to have a relationship with you. Having a computer adjust how I sound is now a barrier between me and the other person. You think it's helping you. It's actually an impediment because it makes you less human. I don't understand why you'd want to do that. Copy editing and technical formatting. This is something we hear a lot from young people. For copy editing, AI reliably handles grammar, sentence flow, and consistency checking. I ask it to provide feedback on the writing and flow of my argument, identifying areas that are dense, confusing, or inefficient. Again, I don't understand why you can't do this yourself. If you know what you want to say and you're a good reader, I'm assuming, can't you identify those things for yourself? I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. I know professionals still need editing, but again, you're getting that from a human being who's going to respond like a human would. I don't know why you wouldn't just have a human do it. Or why you just wouldn't do it yourself. I mean, when I read my own articles and I'm editing and going through and seeing what revisions need to be made, these are the questions I ask myself. So, people who are good at this already do this on their own. For footnote formatting, I provide links and style requirements, asking the AI to extract bibliographic information. This gets me 70% there, but requires careful review. Accuracy decreases with longer lists, and AI occasionally hallucinates details. Oh, it hallucinates. Great. It's a good thing you're devoting so much time to using it with its hallucinations. I work in batches of 10 to make it more manageable and accurate. Again, this sounds very tedious. It's way easier for me to just do all this myself. For document reformatting, you need AI to format your paper for you? This takes 2 seconds to just do it yourself. I ask AI to write scripts that automate repetitive text. You have to ask it to write scripts for you now. There's so many steps to this person's process. I don't know how this person ever gets anything done. It's crazy. These need testing, but they save significant time on large documents. No, not a chance. You can do all this way faster. Key insights. AI works best for process, not content. The most successful applications are process-oriented, organizing thoughts, providing feedback, formatting citations. The least successful are content-oriented, generating arguments, or writing from scratch. Well, it depends on what you mean by works best, because for many people, working best means get this done with as fast as possible. Have it sound somewhat professional so I can be done with it. So you're right. For you, who likes going through this long process, great. I hope there are many more people like you, and I hope this works for them. I'd rather you do it yourself, but fine. If this is what you want to do, do it. But most people don't. They just don't. They do it for content, In fact, you're doing it for content. All the times you said, hey, give me a pro and con list, the computer's providing content for you. So she's kind of fooling herself into thinking, no, no, I'm still in charge of this process. I'm still providing the content. Well, no, you're not. The computer provided some of it. So you're not doing this as independently as you think. Different tools have different strengths. Claude consistently outperformed ChatGPT at preserving voice and avoiding unnecessary rewrites. Experimentation is necessary to find out what works for your needs. Again, experimentation is necessary. How about you experiment with just writing? You'll be a better writer very soon if you just experiment with writing a lot instead of having to go through all these tools to find out which one's best. Limitations keep you engaged. The most valuable AI assistance has built-in constraints that ensure you remain the primary author. Again, yeah, how many people want to do that? Again, she's not even the primary author. The AI adapted her wording from conversation into written text. The AI provided her pros and cons. The AI challenged her on coming up with ways to strengthen her argument. The AI provided research materials for her. The AI did a lot of this. Is she the primary author? Maybe, but she's not the sole author, that's for sure. It's best that they require specific instructions, that the AI needs careful review and is not trying to do everything. She has a couple other articles that she links to from other people about the AI writing process, and that's how she finishes. So, it's interesting advice. I'm glad she provides these little samples of how she uses it, and maybe this will be helpful for other people. When you look at the comments, they're like, this is so great, so helpful. Like, yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, it looks helpful, but you'd be better off just becoming an expert at it and doing it yourself, because it's way faster and way easier. And then it's actually you. And you don't have to go through this intermediary of having a computer do half the work for you. It's just so funny that, if you met someone and they go, and I asked, hey, what do you do? And they go, well, I'm a musician. I go, oh, cool. What instruments do you play? And you go, I don't really play instruments. I go, oh, well, do you sing? Are you a singer? Oh, no, I don't sing. I go, well, what do you mean you're a musician? What do you do? And you said, well, I type into my computer these ideas I have. And I say, I'm thinking about a song that has really high notes, and then it goes to really low notes, and then it has this upbeat tempo. And I kind of want it to sound like this one really cool song I like. And then the computer spits it out for me. And then I have music. And I go, well, wait a minute. You didn't make the music. And you say, well, yeah, I did. I had all the brainstorm. I had all the inputs. I told it what exactly I wanted. It provided a bunch of options. And I said, no, I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. I told it to use, C, G, and A minor chords, and it did that. And so, I created that. I'm a musician. You'd walk away from that conversation going, you're not a musician, dude. You're someone who's pretty savvy with a computer, but you're not a musician. So, we don't apply this way of thinking to other fields. If I go meet a chef and I say, I would really like a dish that has these ingredients and I'd like it to taste like this, and I kind of want it to have this sort of presentation, and here's a few ideas. I want you to use these ideas and bring out 3 different dishes for me to look at, and then I'll pick the one that I think is the best. No one would say, oh, that person's a chef. You'd say, no, you just ordered a meal and someone else cooked it for you. That's what you did. You designed it. You came up with the ingredients. You decided which ones you liked versus the ones you didn't like. You had, sort of the coin flip, like, well, once I saw them, I knew that was the dish I actually want to eat, so I'll eat that one. Well, you're not a cook. You're not a chef. Why? Because you didn't actually implement the techniques of making food that the actual chef did. You didn't know the proper temperatures to cook those things and the proper, ways to incorporate those ingredients, or to use the pan properly, or you didn't have a certain instrument that a utensil that would have helped bring all this together. You didn't use any of that stuff because you're not a chef. And yet we do this all the time with writing. We go, you can be a writer. Here's how AI can help you be a writer. It's like, yeah, you're not a writer. You're a brainstormer. You're a compiler of notes and ideas, and you even might put some of it into a structure. But that's not writing. Writing is having your own ideas, and that you know how to properly borrow from other human beings' ideas, and that you have a voice, and that you chose those specific words to create that specific emotional or intellectual reaction in another human being. And yes, you may have had someone give you some feedback on it. Yes, you may have had someone put the commas in the right place for you, but I would say you're a writer if you do that. When you have someone come up, generate titles for you and reorganize your structure for you and develop your pros and cons and consider other points of view for you and then adapt language for you, I wouldn't call you a writer, but that's what we're doing. It's like it's like you pick out the ingredients and then you go, well, that makes me a chef. No, that's not how this works. It's a combination of, yes, choosing the right materials, the right words, the right ideas, but there's also a technique involved that you have to apply that one works, but is also yours. It has to come from you. That's what makes you a real author. So, again, I appreciate the way she's approached this, that she's doing it from kind of a teaching standpoint, that she's like, here's the best ways of doing it. Where you can sort of feel like you're maintaining your own voice and your own original thoughts, I guess. But again, with enough practice, you can just do all this on your own, and you can be good, and this can be way faster. And again, back to what I said about what's the purpose of this. When I write things, because I post things at least twice a week on my Substack, I go into it with a specific purpose. It's not just to crank out another article because I need something to post on my website on Monday. It's because I want to have something valuable to say to someone, whoever that reader might be. Sometimes, it's pretty general. Sometimes it's pretty specific. But I want that reader to have an experience where they felt like a human being was talking to them and providing something valuable to them because they cared enough. I want them to think that author cared enough to sit down and really look at these words and come up with his own ideas and put himself in my shoes and look at this topic from a variety of angles and then decide how it was going to sound and then send it to me because he cares about me as a reader. That's what I think that person's thinking about. If all you're doing is going, well, I want it to sound good so I have something that looks nice on my website, and it's sort of about this topic I've kind of been thinking about. I don't know a lot about the topic, but I sort of have this vague idea of what would sound cool, but I just need some help getting there. That's not what a reader wants to read. And so, I hope this works for this lady. I don't know. But I think this is what's happening with education too, to bring it back to more of my field of being a writer and an educator, is people think this is what teaching AI is going to be. That, well, we'll teach them these processes, and the students will still have the ownership of the piece. And even when you do this, as I've just pointed out for the last however many minutes I've been talking, it's still not all yours. You still had the computer do a lot of it for you. And so it's just not the same as saying, well, it's just a helper. It's just enhancing my writing. It's just a tool. Anyone who ever says that AI is just another tool doesn't know anything about tools or AI. Because it's not. It's not just another tool. And when it comes down to it, a tool's usefulness is to just get things accomplished. A true tool's usefulness is not to help you understand. It's not to help you become smarter. It's just to do stuff. It's like if I have a flathead screwdriver, and imagine that there's a Swiss Army knife like device that has all sorts of different types of heads of screwdrivers on it. And it's a little machine and I can talk to it, just like the computer is a machine that I can talk to. And I ask it, and I go, hey, I've got this flathead screwdriver, and I have to go work on this project that I know is going to have a lot of screws with it. What if I encounter some screws that aren't flatheads? What do you think I should do? Can you give me some advice on how I can still be effective at, using my tool in this project I got to work on? And the little device, the multi-headed Swiss Army knife type of screwdriver piece of intelligence, says, well, you could still use the flathead on a Phillips because it can kind of, it's not going to grip directly, but it can still jam in there, and it should still be able to turn it. So you can use it for that. And on any screws that have like a hexagonal shape, you still, if you tilt the screwdriver and put it at a corner, you might be able to screw it that way. What you could do is you could run to the store and just buy like 8 different types of screwdrivers, and you could do that. That'll take you like an hour to go find it, but you could do that instead of using your one, or you could not do that project. You could just go do something else. Like, it could give you all sorts of advice, okay, on how to approach your project with your tool, your one screwdriver head that you have. Or if you're going to ask that device for help, what do you think the best way of asking that device for help would be? Hey, can you just do this for me? After all, you've got all the tools I already need, so how about I just borrow you and you can just do this? That's what we do with tools. The tool is used to accomplish things. The tool is giving me ideas on how to be creative and how to use the tool I have for unique ways of doing it. It gave me ideas for solving the problem that I could just, go buy them, or I could ask a friend to borrow some. Like, I could approach this problem a million different ways. What would be the best way of using that? Well, just use the tool. So when we call it a tool, that's where our brain goes. Our brain goes to, well, just use it to accomplish the task. Why are you even messing around with all these 50 steps that she wrote down? Like, well, I do this, and then I do that, and then I have it recheck this. Like, why would you do that? How about just have it do it? That's the mentality that people are actually going to use these AI programs for. So you can go through all this. You can do the mental gymnastics to try to convince yourself that you're still the author. But are people going to do that? No, because all you're aiming at is getting out a product. Whereas if you actually want to communicate with people, you actually want to have a human relationship between writer and reader, yeah, why don't you just do that yourself? You'll be a smarter person. You'll demonstrate your expertise better, and the reader will respect you more because you took the time to talk to them. Well, that's a pretty cool thing. I don't know why we'd want to ruin that by having the machinery get in the way. Because if you're going to have the machinery get in the way, you might as well just use the machinery. It doesn't make any sense to not use it. So when I hear academic people say, well, AI is here, we've just got to teach kids to use it properly, it's just another tool. Like, why? Why would we do that? It's not just another tool. Remember the old cliche is, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if this becomes the hammer of our world, well, everything then becomes something we take to AI. And there is no human interactions. There is no human creativity, because if this is the prevailing tool, everything we do in life will go through this tool. And now, as Marshall McLuhan and Neil Postman, all these guys have said for years, the old line, we shape our tools and then our tools shape us. Like, okay, well, we built this AI platform, but how is the AI now building us? It's changing us into completely different people. We are now people that resort to AI for every single little thing. When, one, it doesn't do as good a job as I could do myself, and two, it's taking away the humanity that makes me and every other person special and helps us respect one another more. So this is where we're at. We're at a place where this is our hammer, and we're using it for everything. And even if you think you're using it in the right way, like the hammer, you can use it to build a house, or you can use it to murder somebody. Like, okay, you're teaching him to use it in the right way. That's fine. But the point remains, once you're a hammerer, you want to hit everything. Okay. And yeah, I can teach you the best way to use it, but it's changed your brain. You want to do this to everything. Same thing with the ChatGPT or Claude or whatever platform you're using. You're now an AI using being. You are a different person than you were 5-10 years ago. And is that the type of person you want to be? Maybe so. I don't, a lot of these technologies are good. It's very helpful and useful, and maybe we needed to become different types of people. I don't know. But we at least have to think about that. And that's what Neil Postman often talks about is, we're not considering the consequences of this. What type of person is this making me into? And is that good? And might feel good because now I get my article written faster because I just have the computer do it for me. Or maybe I'm harming my own intelligence. Maybe I'm not as smart. Maybe I'm not as respectful of other people. Maybe I'm not as friendly. Maybe I'm not as empathic. Well, that's not a good place to be either. So, like I said, interesting article. She approached it differently than just saying, well, we just got to teach students how to use it better. It's just a tool. She did provide something different, which is good. And I appreciate the different tasks that she applied this to, but this all seems very tedious. And again, just become an expert. Like I can do this faster and better than this lady can because I've been doing this for 40 years and it's way easier. So, you don't need 40 years, but a little more practice and you can do this on your own. You don't need the computer to do stuff for you. So, anyway, there's another AI topic for you today. This one a little less about education, more about the actual world of writing tasks. But I hope that was interesting. Thanks for watching. See ya.